I hate music.
Thanks a lot. Welcome everybody to Music Week 2014. This is going to be the first in what I'm hoping is going to become a yearly RPG fan music feature, where we've just got a bunch of guests lined up to come in and talk about their favorite music from the year. We've got some interviews lined up for you. We've got all kinds of cool stuff, and you're going to have to check back every day this week for something new. We're really excited about this. It took a lot of work to get into it, but I'm here today, Stephen Meyerink, Taylor's on the boards.
And I'm Derek Heemsbergen. I'm Embryon on the boards. This is going to be a 3-part mega show because we had so many people that ended up being interested. So we're going to have several interviews and features planned out, as well as interviews and our Music of the Year feature. It's a bit later than you guys might expect, but we hope you'll find that it's worth the wait.
Yeah, so we're going to be splitting, like I said, the show, like Derek and I said, the show into 3 parts. The first 2 parts are going to be all of our RPG fan editors' favorite tracks from the year, and we sort of made them stick to stuff that was actually released in 2013. The final segment, though, which is our audience pick section, that's just all kinds of music that you guys wanted to hear. No criteria at all, just totally random chaos nonsense. Pick anything you want to have it there. You guys have been sending stuff in for a few months now, so we wanted to give you a chance to hear us talk about it on the show and listen to it, of course.
Yes, and continue to stay tuned for the rest of the week, because in addition to this super mega podcast extravaganza, we've got a really cool series of features coming out that are going to trickle out throughout the week. We've got some interviews with some pretty notable folks in the VGM scene. Like if you're a fan of Final Fantasy XIV, especially, you may want to keep listening, and all kinds of cool stuff to sink your teeth into.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about this before, but normally we would save this kind of thing for the end, but I'm just so excited to talk about it that we just really wanted to thank everybody who's been a part of this for the past year, because at this point we're coming up, or actually we just passed the first year anniversary of Rhythm Encounter. So when we started this, yeah, seriously, when we started, we weren't even sure there'd be enough interest to keep this going, but you guys have been talking to us all year on Twitter, on the boards, and it's just getting more and more popular. And then, Derek, like we were talking earlier too, even the editors on the boards, like...
Yeah, it's been pretty crazy how many people have jumped in on this, because at first we were just afraid that not enough people would be interested, because Steven and I were the most enthusiastic in the beginning, and as people listened to the show, and as listeners started to enjoy it, more and more editors wanted to get in and start sharing their music picks. So it's been really, really great how many people have come out and said that they appreciated the show, and not trying to make it a popularity, like, oh, we're so awesome. But you guys are what make us awesome, in a sense. We wouldn't have this show if we didn't have a lot of cool listeners that were tuning in all the time and telling us what they wanted to hear. So thanks a lot, really, for your feedback and just for listening to the episodes. Even if you've never gotten on the forums and said anything about it, we still appreciate it. You're still awesome for doing that. So it means a lot to us.
Yeah, exactly. Like I was saying to Derek, we play Final Fantasy XIV a lot, and like people who join our free company are like, "Oh, great episode, guys!" And we're like, "What are you talking about?" They're like, "Oh, the episode." Those most recent Rhythm Encounter, we're like, you listen to Rhythm Encounter? You never commented. Oh, well, yeah, but I still like the show. So even you guys that are not writing on the boards, we appreciate you too, because it's really kind of awesome to just know that we've created this thing with you guys' help, and that, like when we ask you questions like, how can we improve the show? When we want to shorten it, you don't get those kind of comments all the time, but when we do, we've really tried to make it into something that everybody can enjoy. And it's just kind of awesome that we've had like an entire year of that. So again, thank you to everybody who's been supporting us for the entire year.
Thank you guys very much.
So without further ado, and I could say that because I haven't said it in a while.
Are you sure?
Oh yeah. Well, if I'm not sure, I'm gonna edit it out. We're gonna let you listen to some tracks between each segment. We're gonna throw in some extra tracks we've heard this year. We'll be talking about them, but just good stuff that we think you might want to hear from 2013. So be sure to listen to that, and then stay tuned. I believe coming up first, we've got Mike and John Tucker's picks. So keep listening. All right, so joining us for this segment, we have Derek, as always. Derek, thank you for being here. We have returning guest star to The Price is Right, Mike Salbato.
Hello.
And we have all new and improved John Tucker.
I'll take RPG music for 200, Alex.
All right, the Daily Double is... Wow,
this song appeared in the DS version of Chrono Trigger, but not in the original.
Thank you for saving me on that. I'm going to edit myself out and just have you saying that so we sound really well flowed. So this is your first time on the show, and we are doing our Music of the Year episode, of course. So we're working through everyone on the staff's picks, and in this particular episode, we recorded in different segments just so we could get everybody's voice in there. And what we're going to do for the format is we're going to have all of our wonderful guest editors come on and tell us what music they love from 2013. Rule-wise, I forced all the editors to kind of stick with 2013 stuff because we let readers kind of open their picks up to anything they wanted to hear in the episode. So in this case, the stipulation was anything that either it was in a game that came out in 2013 or a soundtrack that came out in 2013. So, like, for example, I am absolutely certain Final Fantasy XIV will show up at some point in this episode. In the case of, like, something like, A Realm Reborn, where there hasn't been an official soundtrack release yet, that still, it counts because it came out in 2013. So, for the purposes of listeners knowing what our criteria for picking were, that's what you got. We decided to start with lovely guest Tooker, because you've never been on the show, so I wanted to give you the honor of going first. You've got quite a little spread here, so tell us what you have selected.
Yeah, so this last year, played a lot of games and heard a lot of music from not so awesome to really awesome, and the ones that I picked for the show were lead up to the decisive battle from Ni no Kuni, which if you played Ni no Kuni, you know better as that track that plays when you get on the dragon and fly around every place. Then Adventure in the Alps from The Raven, point and click. If you didn't play that one, I definitely recommend it. And then Final Boss from Penny Arcade 4, which I think that game came out in the previous year and the soundtrack came out in 2013. One way or the other, definitely the soundtrack came out in 2013.
Yeah, and that's a great soundtrack that we'll be covering in the future, too. We're a little delayed on it, but it's really good. Hyperduck has such range, I think, and that's why I was really glad you picked it, because I don't think we've had anything from Penny Arcade yet, like 3 or 4, and that whole album, I think, has a lot of really interesting music. So,
and Hyperduck does they definitely contribute a really sort of like rocky vibe that not rocky like Boxer Rocky, rock -e vibe that you wouldn't expect necessarily from a sprite-based RPG like that. So it stands out a lot, I think.
Yeah, it really creates an interesting mood in that game. Like, when you turn it on, I think it feels distinctly different from... Because most of 3 was done by... I don't remember who, but some of the DLC for 3 was done by Hyperduck. So, like, it really creates... I think... I mean, you beat both of them, Tooker, so, like, did you feel like the atmosphere was pretty different?
Yeah, and actually saying that the tracks that they did from 3 are on the Penny Arcade 4 soundtrack.
Oh, that's right.
So, yeah, this particular one, Final Boss, I like because it brings that rock stuff, but it also brings sort of the Cthulhu Lovecraftian thing that the game has going on to the track. You'll understand when you hear it if you haven't heard it before.
Cool. Well, in that case, before we talk too much about it, let's go ahead and take a listen to the tracks. So we've got Lead Up to the Decisive Battle from Ni no Kuni, Adventure in the Alps from The Raven, and Final Boss from Penny Arcade 4.
So I think, when you hear that lead up to the decisive battle, track, as I said, it's the one that you hear when you get on your flying mount, your dragon that takes you all over the map instantly. Well, not instantly, but fast enough. The word that comes to mind for me through the whole track is majestic. And I know that's maybe kind of a cheesy word to use these days, but just that trumpet, that fanfare, you're like, I never want to get off this dragon.
I use the word, on my notes, I use the word triumphant airship moment vibe, because that's like, I love the World Map song in Ni no Kuni, but I think I like that better, because oddly, it reminds me of Ragnarok from Final Fantasy VIII, like the song Ragnarok, or I think it's Ride On, and like, it just gives you that, oh, this is it, this is the end of the adventure feel, and it's like, it's so exciting, and like, there's drama to it, and like, you really, like, Joe, as I like to call him, makes such great use of the orchestra in the Ni no Kuni soundtrack, like, just, it feels like this really full, like, everything has come together for this moment song, and I think you get such a great sense of the finality, and like, the wonderful, like, just that transcendent feeling you get when you have the ability to fly everywhere now, like, the most terrestrial of your limitations has been thrown off, and now you're like, I'm going to go fly around and save the world.
And besides that, it's also very classically Hisaishi in that it sounds like a Ghibli soundtrack, like that swelling moment near the climax of the film when the characters are empowered and they're ready to resolve whatever's happening.
Giant trees are murdering the forest, that sort of thing.
Yeah, or like some death monster has been resurrected and you have to fly in your little glider and stop it. And actually, that doesn't really happen.
I knew that would be the movie you referenced. Thank you.
Yep. Yes, you're welcome, because Nausicaa is amazing. Yeah, so and it also, I think, plays into the fact that Ni no Kuni is about a young boy that's coming of age and, trying to deal with the grief that follows the death of his mother. Early game spoiler, even though I'm pretty sure it says that. It says as much almost like on the box, right?
Yeah. It's the opening cutscene. Right.
So I think it's an empowering track as well, because it's an arrangement of sorts of the world map theme, which has been playing since the beginning of the game. So from a gameplay standpoint, it's the point where Oliver is finally growing up and he's ready to go and confront his fears and such. So there's a thematic resonance there too.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's been like a year since I played that game, and now that we're talking about this track, I find myself like wanting to talk more about the game, but there's only so much time for the show.
Yeah, technically speaking, there's only so much time.
Yeah.
It'd be good to talk. It'd be good to talk on like a reflection type thing. Like, did we do a Game of the Year episode for Random Encounter? Did we? I don't think we did we? Don't we usually do that?
No, we talked about some predictions and stuff, but yeah, we didn't do favorites.
Yeah, it'd be good. Yeah, retrospective stuff is always fun to do, and we even end up doing it here sometimes, just because you talk about the music and like that just taps into your memories of something so well that that's what you end up with.
Yeah.
Well, we should go back in time and redo episode 75 to be that.
We could go back to the future. Oh man.
Yeah, you already.
I already got to do that. All right,
sorry.
Fine. The second track though, lay it on us.
Yeah, so the second track was Adventure in the Alps from the Raven. I love that track. I love that whole soundtrack. I don't think there's this track on it that I think is less than awesome. But that one of the things that I really love about the soundtrack as a whole is that, like, every track in the game feels right for its setting. The Adventure in the Alps, has that. It's got that 4-beat sort of train kind of sound to it in the middle, and that is where you're on a train in the Alps in that part of the game, and it's very lighthearted, which fits that part of the game as well. You're not dealing with people being dead or solving scary mysteries yet. You're walking around a train, being a conductor, and there's it's all happy and fun, and just overall the whole soundtrack reminds me a lot of sort of the classic Disney soundtracks.
Yeah, that's actually exactly what I was thinking.
And maybe some like stage musical kind of stuff, but yeah, it's just really another great orchestra as well. There's actually video out on like YouTube of at least one of the tracks being recorded by the orchestra. It's worth checking out.
Oh, wow. For me, it actually strikes a little bit of a Harry Potter chord.
Yeah,
it's like they're on the train and they're getting ready to go to Hogsmeade, maybe, or something like that. And you get like the sweeping view of snow falling on Hogwarts, or I don't know. I'm throwing out Harry Potter references to make Steven giggle.
It worked. What's interesting is the whole time we were listening to it, I was trying to figure out like what it was reminding me of, because it reminds me so much of a certain song, and have yet to come up with a track. But what it really gets me is I feel like that's what it would sound like if you took like a town theme from Shining Force and did it like modern style. Like I got such a like you're in Grand Seal walking around and like, going into the houses and talking to people and you're like, hey, who's this turtley person inside the small building? And
Kiwi.
Kiwi is awesome, but like it's just really what the vibe I get. And like there's another it's driving me nuts that I can't place what it reminds me of. But yeah, maybe it is Harry Potter.
Maybe.
It's great though.
Deeply ingrained.
The Raven is a very, very quietly released and sort of, I don't want to say forgotten because I don't think anybody like forgot about it, but it's pretty. You really liked it, didn't you, Tucker?
Yeah, I did. I gave it good reviews all the way through. Really, I said this in my review. The only part that let me down was like the final 30 seconds of the game, and it was not bad enough that it made me go, oh, I wish I hadn't played all that other stuff that I really enjoyed. It just made me go, oh, I wish I hadn't done that one particular thing. But yeah, the puzzles are good. The graphics look great. Everything about it is great.
Yeah. So as an adventure game aficionado, I recommend everyone try it out. And the music is great too. And I believe the game actually comes with its soundtrack digitally. We were fortunate enough to get it from E3 too, but it's
oh, you're right. I do have that.
Yeah.
I have the CD. I haven't even opened it.
And they gave us that super cool
USB pen thing.
Yeah, the USB like black raven feather. So cool.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, I actually use it too. I'm like, people are like, what's that? I'm like, it's my raven feather. It holds my data.
It's my raven.
Yeah, I didn't think of the Disney angle because I was listening to it and your thing that you were trying to like relate it to is Shining Force, and I was listening and I got a vibe from it but couldn't pinpoint it. So I'm glad you mentioned the Disney thing.
Yeah, like I just I'm like racking my brain, sitting here, I'm like da 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 da, like that's in a Disney film somewhere or something that I watched or a game or something.
Yeah, it's not what I obviously don't know anything about the game, but it's not what I expected from that soundtrack. But I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, it's got a cool vibe.
Yeah. So I need to listen to the rest of it now.
Like I said, I think it's all great, but that was the track I wanted to pick for the show.
Cool.
Maybe I'll open my CD finally.
It's worth doing.
I'm actually
You've
looking at mine now. So the last track.
Yes, moving on from our happy-go-lucky adventure in the Alps, the last track that we had in that set was a final boss from Penny Arcade 4. I really like the way it starts off with that Lovecrafty kind of chanty thing that, the whole series, all four of the games have that theme to them, the Lovecraftian, influence. And then it transitions over to like the electric guitar and things that you hear through the rest of the game. Just, it's weird. The Penny Arcade 4 soundtrack, when I was playing the game, I was like, this is like whatever. But as I've listened to it outside the game, I actually like it quite a bit more outside the game than I liked it inside the game, which is really strange. And I'm not sure I can pinpoint exactly why I feel that way.
See, and that's actually why I bought the game, because I like the music so much and I really love Hyperduck's work. I'm not especially keen on the Penny Arcade games. Like they're not terrible, but they're just kind of like they don't really do much for me. But I bought the game and I'm playing it. I'm like, gosh, I love the music, but man, I'm like, I got the same impression. I'm like, it's just, I feel like it creates an interesting atmosphere, but not that it's not well matched, because I feel like you can have music of that type in a 2D sprite style game like that. But something about it just seemed really off to me. And that I agree. I like it better out of the game. And that song in particular, like right from the first moments after the choir is over, I feel like all you're getting is Noriyuki Iwadare Grandia music right there.
Yes.
That sounds so much like a boss theme from Grandia 2, and it's awesome.
That sounds like Fight.
Oh, all those songs. We played Fight, didn't we? Yeah, we played it in the first episode.
Like Fight version 2, I think.
Yeah, I think we played Fight version 2. Ba-da-da-ba-da-bum. Yeah, man, we should play more of that.
So good. I want to cancel my enemy's attacks, which, amusingly, that's actually a common thing. Like, that's something that they share in common, that Penny Arcade's
you're right.
battle system has that whole, like, attack cancellation thing, just like Grandia, and that song sounds like a Grandia song. Weird.
Somebody was inspired.
Yeah. I was a little tempted to pick the Fish Force anthem. The Fish Force is sort of the Team Rocket of Penny Arcade 4.
Such a great song, too.
I decided just not to go that way and pick the more sort of epic sounding instead.
Yeah, we'll save that one for an April Fool's episode or something.
Yeah.
full of wacky music.
Than the Axum Rangers from Mario RPG.
Oh man, those guys were awesome though.
Axum.
I was about to say we'll save it for an April Fool's episode where we play the mansion theme from Resident Evil, but now we can't because the guy totally stole the music.
I know, I can't believe it.
So not only is it terrible, but it's stolen.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Oh man, actually, I don't know if the director's cut was him. I think it was just the original, the good music, but I don't remember. But it's kind of off topic.
A little bit.
But yeah, thanks for bringing your picks, Tooker. I really liked all three of those tracks, and I like I was telling you before the show, those are, other than Ni no Kuni, those are things that we haven't really represented on the show yet, and that's something that's Derek and I's New Year's resolution for the show going forward this year, is we want to try to get a greater variety of things in there, because obviously we love to hear the music we love, and we want to play music that we particularly like, but we also want to make sure that we're appealing to, everybody. There's got to be something for everybody, and I think by getting those two games that we haven't had at all and some more Ni no Kuni, I really like that you picked those, because oh cool, this will fit in really well with our New Year's resolution.
Yeah, I think it makes our selections more balanced.
Yeah, because there's plenty of time for us to just play Chrono Cross all day, and we got to do that for 3 hours last time. So I'm okay. I'll be okay for another month or two, and then it might be time to come up with another theme, like games that involve Ono Trigger, or games with designs by Akira Toriyama or whoever did Xeno. Ooh.
Xeno everything.
We should do a Xeno something, because there's a lot of amazing music in all of those games. Everything with Xeno has good music.
We could even pick stuff from Xenosaga on DS.
Have you heard the music in that? It's really good.
I never have, actually.
Oh, it's cool. A lot of it is arrangements of the Xenosaga episode 1 and 2 music on the console versions, but some of them are there's original music too. It's really cool.
Well, guess what we're doing this year then?
Yep.
We're going to go Xeno style, and then we can include Xenomorph stuff too, so if there's an alien RPG, we can use that.
Xeno style, when you go to In-N-Out Burger and they put alien blood on your burger.
Is that
Xeno style, please?
Is that a thing you can do?
Yeah, sure.
You have to bring your own alien blood, though.
Yes, I sounded really gullible there.
Let's do that.
With that, moving on, Mike, you are as our most recent guest. I was just I'm going to leave him off. He already picked a bunch of stuff, but then you sent me your picks, and I was like, okay, he can come on. He picked awesome music. So, can we talk a little bit about what we're about to play that you selected?
Absolutely not.
Favorite of 2013? Oh, come on, do it for the listeners and Derek and everybody but me.
Oh, okay. As long as it's not for you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So my first one was from A Link Between Worlds, which was a tough choice. I picked the final Low Roll Castle theme, and there's a lot of music I like in that game, The Dark World, and I might like the Dark World theme more, but I thought it made more sense to pick an actual brand new original track versus a remix, even though I like the remixes. Okay, so that's why I chose that. My second track is A Fistful of Nickels from Balance and Ruin, the Final Fantasy VI Overclocked album.
Yes.
That is Shadow's theme. It really,
I think that's my favorite track on that entire compilation, actually. That or the Impresario.
And my third track is, I don't want to spoil, so I won't say exactly what it is. I'll just say that it's from a major boss battle in Final Fantasy XIV.
It's from a wonderful one.
All right, so coming up, we have the final dungeon theme from The Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds, A Fistful of Nickels from the Final Fantasy VI Balance and Ruin Overclocked Remix album, and finally the secret track that's a important boss theme from Final Fantasy XIV and Realm Reborn.
think what surprised me most about the Final Dungeon theme for A Link Between Worlds is that I haven't played it in the game yet, but it's still really awesome. Thematically, it's cool because it sort of builds up to itself, and we've talked about that a couple times before. But like the most notable one I can think of is the Phantasy Star episode, and when we talked about the World Map song in Skies of Arcadia, it starts out as this one melody and then keeps building upon itself as you get deeper and deeper, and that gives it this really cool sense of like building to a climax that I think that they're really good at capturing musically in those games, and just in general, it sounds kind of like a cop-out to say it has that Link Between Worlds vibe to it, but it really does. Like, I know that sounds like a cop-out, but it's like it really kind of encapsulates it, and it's when you have a series like that where I'm gonna take a shot in the dark and say most people aren't playing Zelda for the story. I mean, there are storytelling moments that you love, like when you pull the Master Sword out in Ocarina of Time, and the final battle with Ganon. Like, you like those moments, but, like, for a series where the overall plot is not what is getting most players to play it, I think it's still great that they can capture that sort of epic sense of just finality. Like, you've been through this long adventure, and now you're wrapping things up.
I think, what you were saying about building on itself and things, it's funny how people might not think of something like that as being important to a game, but it really is so important to the feeling, that sort of adrenaline pumping that you can get when you're getting to the end of a game, that feeling that things are building up and building up and building up, and to have music structured like that really helps with that feeling, it to drive that emotion in you.
Yeah, which is, I think that's one of the reasons why, I mean, I'm an emotional dude. I freak out whenever something I like happens, and, that's why I think I enjoy games that use music well like that, because, you're climbing the bad guy's tower, like you're climbing Kefka's tower, and it's dramatic, and you're getting ready to fight Kefka, but when the music reflects that building sense of anticipation that you have, like, in your head when you're playing, it's just like, all of it comes together. It creates such a cool vibe, and I think the last couple Zeldas have done an amazing job of that. So, I mean, I'm not surprised that this one did it as well, given that it's my favorite Zelda in X number of entries. But just such a really great song.
Yeah, and I don't want to say that music goes unnoticed, because it doesn't, obviously, especially not by people like us. But when I was younger,
what do you mean, like us?
Yeah, what do you mean, like those people, RPG people? When I was a kid, I actually remember having this discussion with one of my friends who was arguing with me about how music is such a big part of games, and I was like, they would still be good without the music. And I mean, I completely, I've done a 180 since then. I completely think that music makes games a lot of the time, and I'm willing to overlook faults in games for good music, or play them to certain points for good music, or at least, find that music and listen to it on its own. So, when I was younger, and I think this is something that I think a lot of us that grew up playing video games in particular may not have really thought about how important or integral music is to the experience, or to tying it into the narrative or the action on the screen. But more and more, now that game music is becoming a lot more widely appreciated, we can focus on that more. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is that, like, climbing Kefka's tower, when we did that for the first time back when we first played that game, like, we definitely were like, oh my god, this is so climactic. And we may not have thought those exact words, but we were like, oh, it's finally happening. This is so amazing. This is so epic for,
Like that moment when everyone, like, your whole party, like, you reach Kefka, and, like, everybody sort of pans out, and then they all are like, all right, I'm going to give my quick speech. The music really suits it well, too, if I recall. I don't remember that scene exactly, but but, like, if there is no music, I feel like...
Yeah, just imagine playing it on mute. Like, even if you're not the kind of person who really focuses on game music or listens to it outside of games, that's fine, but you can imagine, like, if that was muted, if there was absolutely no sound, it loses a lot of its impact.
Yeah.
So it's similar, like, in A Link Between Worlds, it builds up and gets progressively more instrumentated as it goes on. And finally, it's like, oh my god, I'm almost there. Here we go. It's the final fight, and you get excited.
Yeah, I agree totally. And I think we played. I can't remember if we played it or not. Gosh, I can't believe it's been that long. It's been a year since we started.
Ooh, go us.
The Final Dungeon theme in Skies of Arcadia does that, where it starts out very, like, quiet and sort of peaceful, and then just rapidly builds up, and then, like, the Great Moon Shrine is like, boo-doo-doo-doo-doo, and then, like, they just keep adding more and more to it. So those kinds of things just do a great job to mentally prepare you for the fact that you're building towards something. So,
all right, and then following that, what did we listen to?
We listened to A Fistful of Nickels Shadows theme from Balance and Ruin.
That's not very much money, really.
Well, I mean, depends on how big your fist is. I mean,
Well, I mean,
you
if-
have like
if you-
giant Hulk hands, you could have like 20, 30
Yeah, if you have tiny hands, like freakishly small hands, like Rob said, quote his words, not mine.
freakishly
you-
small hands.
You may not be able to hold very many nickels.
Also, that
furthermore,
his
like-
neck swallows his
You-
chin.
You know what they
Who's-
say about guys with really small hands?
They
They can't
have
hold
really
very
small
many
feet.
nickels.
They what?
Yeah,
No,
okay.
they can't hold very many nickels.
That is what they say.
That's
And
going to be my quote when we post this. You know what they say about guys with small hands? They can't hold very many nickels.
That's perfect. And like, if Shadow's gonna slit his mama's throat for a nickel, like that's not very much money. I think his standards are pretty low. Like, he obviously doesn't have much confidence in his skills, or like very much self-esteem. But
I think it's more that he's not driven by money. He's just driven by violence, I guess.
Violence. He's driven by favors. Money's not as important to me as favors. No, but we when we interviewed them, which you should check out, we still have it archived in the RPG Fan YouTube account. When we interviewed OC Remix, we talked to Andrew Reversa about that track, and like I was saying, when I first heard it, I was working in the library, and just the whistling and just the whole way the song comes in is very Ennio Morricone, who is responsible for some of the biggest Old West soundtracks, like A Fistful of Dollars and that sort of
Exactly.
thing. And his music is amazing, and then like you look at like the sort of the tradition that's produced, like Michiru Naruke when she did Wild Arms, songs are. Like, I don't want to discredit her in any way because she's incredibly talented, but songs are almost cribbed directly from Ennio Morricone's work to create that sort of whistling and the very, like, lonely acoustic guitar and the harmonica. Like, that sound is sort of, like, pioneered by Morricone. And so when you have it transplanted onto Shadow's theme, which is a theme I don't even like that much, like, I don't dislike it, but he's, like, I wouldn't tell you, oh, Shadow's theme is great. It becomes so much more. It's my favorite track on that album, and just it's so expressive, and like it just tells you so much about his character with just that song. And like as the track goes on, like there's that cool like all the instruments get stripped out, you get that little breakdown, and then sort of the end of it, it picks up pace really fast. And I always get the vibe of it's like Shadow leaving town, like not that he's riding a horse, but like if you're in like an Old West, some guy heading out into the frontier, and he's rapidly his horse is gathering speed. So it's such a vivid and evocative song for me that just it's easily the best track on the album for me, and that's really saying something.
Yeah, especially if it isn't one of your favorite original themes.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing is like, and not even for any particular reason. I can't say like the melody just doesn't get me, and also I was one of the few people I guess that didn't really care for Shadow. I was one of the people in the movie theater who didn't really like Shadow. I didn't really like it.
Shadow's okay, but I don't really like Shadow.
Yeah, like Shadow, he was not especially raggy. He just, he's not my type. He's like all muscly and mysterious, and I like the happy, plucky, good characters. Like I was like Edgar and Sabin for most of the game. So that his theme, even the melody is awesome in the remix version of that song. So it's like I don't know. It's like Shadow's theme prime. It's like what Shadow's theme was born to be. So I could say a lot of good things about it and have. So
well, there's that kind of idea of a track being just kind of okay in its original form and then being changed and becoming something really a lot bigger is something that's gone on throughout music history. There's a lot of songs that you'll hear that when you find out, oh, that version that I know is not the original version. And I don't know. I don't want to give too specific examples because I don't want to date myself too badly, but yeah. It's when there's something to be said for the art of writing a great song, and there's something to be said for the art of finding greatness and bringing it out in a song that maybe was just okay to begin with.
It's very wise, Tucker.
Thank you.
that was very like your voice kind of like whispered off that. Like, thank you. So yeah, I think so. And then the last track was a major boss battle track from Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn, and it's interesting because now that I've done that battle a couple of times, it's such an epic fight, and there's so much great build up to it, and it's so much great music that it's like I forget how good it is, and then I'll run that battle again with people and be like, oh, this is great, and it's just during this fight you can have airships thrown at you, and so like all I think of is like me going like running the other way as like the big giant targeting reticle hits the ground, and it's like, run the other way, it's gonna blow up. And it's just it's so iconically Final Fantasy finale that I just can't help but get excited when I hear that song.
Yeah, the imagery in the fight is great as well. It's very climactic. We keep saying climactic. I think we've played quite a few end game or near end game tracks. Yeah, but yeah, this is a particularly climactic fight, and it uses it very much throws back to older Final Fantasy games with its chorus, and like the deep drums and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I really like the drums. Having not played this, I think it still really holds up even without the experience that goes along with it in the game. But I noticed those drums. I like that.
Yeah, that kind of gives it a real punchy feel, which is great because it's hard to explain because a lot of the fights kind of are like some of the fights in that game are a little bit more like cerebral, where it's like, oh, you have to manage the ads of the boss and you have to manage like certain different things, like, oh, there'll be towers in one fight that you have to protect. And this fight has kind of none of that pretext. It's just like when this song starts playing, it's straight up just you have to punch the boss as hard as you can before he punches you and kills you. So
yeah. And dodge all kinds of attacks.
Yeah, airships and just bombs and all kinds of nonsense. So it's I think that sort of reflects it because some of the other fights are a little more. The songs kind of reflect the fight well, which is funny because some of them weren't even composed for these style of fight. But it makes me want to go and fight that battle in the game
again. All right, well we can run it later.
Yeah, we can. Mike, any thoughts since you picked it and haven't said anything about any of the tracks you picked?
Gee, how do you really feel?
He's just trusting them to stand on their own.
I picked these, and have a good night.
You can see why.
Yeah, you understand why.
You understand why.
Yeah, they're good songs. I like Final Fantasy VI and Zelda and stuff. So, yeah, there you go.
No, thank you. No. Just wanted. I was just ribbing you a little bit, but
I know. Yeah, I think we've mentioned it, I don't know, 3,000-4,000 times, but 14 has really good music.
No way.
Does it?
Yeah.
It's almost like we gave it Music of the Year in our Game of the Year award.
And Game of the Year. We gave Final Fantasy XIV a lot of awards.
We did give Music of the Year, huh? On top of Game of the Year.
Yeah. Well, I guess best sound, quote unquote.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, same thing.
Well, if it wasn't amazing, it wouldn't have earned the award. But
True.
Right.
Yeah, I was narrowing down my picks, and what I ended up with today was 3 boss songs. There's a lot of good music generally, but I ended up with 3 boss musics, and one was Garuda, which. Can I say Garuda? Is that a spoiler?
No, she's like on the box.
Okay, good. Which is probably my next favorite. And I didn't realize till today that was actually in 1.0, that same song.
Yeah. I think Titan is not in 1.0, the song. Or
Correct.
Is it?
No, he's not. He's not even in the game in 1.0.
And is the Ifrit track in...
It's different.
Okay.
The
Garuda's theme is so distinctive that I can see why they kept it. Like, they did a really great job culling some of the best stuff from 1.0 to reuse in 2.0, and it fits in well.
I think actually Ifrit's thing is from 1.0. Yeah, but Titan, the fight and the song is completely new. I wonder what Leviathan's going to sound like.
I don't know. And then this song, again, unless I missed it somewhere, this song is new for 2.0.
Yeah.
I figured that's why it got the vote over Garuda, even though Garuda's theme is amazing and everyone should listen to it.
Yes. All right. Well, Mike, thanks for bringing your picks again. I mean, I'm sure you'll be around, but so like I said, the way we're going to be doing this is in different segments. So that's going to be it for Mike and Tooker's picks. Tooker, thank you for coming on the show. We might see you again in reader time, in listener time. That could be in 30 seconds, but in our time, it could be maybe you'll be on in a week or two or in a month. But thank you both for dropping by.
Yeah,
no problem.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, dudes.
All right, and everybody else, go ahead and keep listening because we got more coming up. All right, so we're coming back in, and we've got new guests. Mike is still here. Hi, Mike.
Hello.
Hello. So we have super awesome special guests. They're not RPG fan people, but they're still awesome. First up, we have Don Kotowski, who is not a stranger to our podcast, but nonetheless, from Square Enix Music Online. He's awesome and knowledgeable and funny. So, hi, Don.
Hello.
And then we have, how am I going to, I need a good title. All right. So we have Michael A. Cunningham, a.k.a. Mac, Red Mage / editor-in-chief of RPGamer, also known as Supreme Overlord. That's what we call our editor-in-chief. So that's how I view you, as the Supreme Overlord.
I prefer Lavos.
Lavos. Okay, all right. You can come on anytime. So we've been trying to get you both on for a while, and this is going to be a little bit more brief than we normally do, because we're going to introduce you guys' picks for 2013, and we'll go through that just like we did with our last section. And then hopefully we can get you both back in a full episode, too. But for now, we'll take the quality we can get. It's not about quantity.
Works for me.
So, and again, thank you both for consenting to drop by. That you both brought awesome music, and again, one of you is relieving me of a pick that I would have picked already. So now I'm free to pick something else. The benefits of waiting till the end, I guess. So, Mac, let's start with you. You brought 4 tracks. We said 3, but we decided that guests can cheat. So, what are you hitting us with?
Yes, I am a cheater, and it's just great to be able to share this. And it was really, really hard to come up with 3 anyway. So going to 4, it's just cheating for a good cause.
It is, and you know what? Welcome to my nightmare. Every time we pick the track list, it's like Mike. When Mike came on to do the time travel episode, he says, "Hey, I have 30 tracks. Is that okay?" No, Mike. Why do I have to cut this? I
think you're exaggerating. I think I only had 21.
Okay. You had 21, which is most of our podcasts have like 21 tracks total. So, but
you just ran that one on your own.
Yeah, it's
I tried.
Well, we wanted them to, but it's tough. So it's really hard. Like when someone says, "All right, you have an hour to talk about your favorite boss themes. Pick 3." That's tough to do.
It is. It's like picking your favorite children, assuming you like children or have children or any of those things.
I don't. But
I don't either, and
you don't have children, or you don't like children.
Neither.
Sorry, you left it open-ended. I had to jump at that opportunity.
See, I don't have kids, but if I were my parents, I'd pick me as the favorite child. But that's just,
Yeah, that's only fair.
I'm not biased. I'm just trying to objectively evaluate it.
Indeed.
Do you listen to this podcast?
Before...
Not anymore.
Before I derailed you, your tracks.
No, that's okay. So yeah, it was really hard to decide because there was a lot of great music last year, and each of the pieces that I selected today are ones that just kind of caught me for different reasons. The first one that I selected was from Etrian Odyssey 4. Now, I've never really been a big Etrian Odyssey fan, just because I don't have the patience, and I love drawing, I love maps and stuff, but I hate drawing them, so it wasn't until 4 that I really even got in and played Etrian Odyssey that much, even though I own all the others and all that fun stuff. But before the game even came out, the teaser site on the Japanese Atlas site that they put up had 3 sample tracks, and I think they eventually added a 4th. But the first track that I am picking tonight is one of those sample tracks that they put on there. It's Labyrinth 3, Grotto of the Adamantian Beast. I think that's what its full title is. You can correct me on that later. But Labyrinth 3 is the first one that I picked. And my wife and I would sometimes sit in her room, and whenever I would be helping her with stuff, I'll throw on music just so we have something to listen to. And I just kept going to that site. This is way before it even came out in Japan, and I would just play that over and over and over. And she was like, oh, I kind of like that. So when the game came out, of course, wanted to get the soundtrack too, and picked up the game. Never actually made it to Labyrinth 3, so I never got to hear this in-game, but it's still one of my personal favorites.
Absolutely, yeah. It's weird, because we got 2 Etrian Odyssey soundtracks in 1 year. Like, well, maybe we got both games last year, and like, I almost can't. Like, I remember, I think I said to Dawn or somebody, I was like, I don't understand how Koshiro does this. Like, that much music in that small amount of time, and like, those soundtracks are really, really good.
Yeah, and it caught me off guard too, because I'd never listened to any of the prior Etrian Odyssey soundtracks, and after that I wanted to go back and listen to more of these. But what really caught me about this piece is just how kind of calm and peaceful it is, yet at the same time it gives kind of an eerie sound to go along with it. I don't know, it's just something you could listen to like if you were just out floating on the river or doing something to relax. So, it's one that I'll sit and listen to anytime I just want to calm down or, relax and enjoy myself. Yet at the same time, it's like the third labyrinth of a dungeon, and by the time you were to get there in game, you'd probably be freaking out and dying left and right. So,
yeah, you wouldn't expect it to be soothing.
Exactly. Pretty stark contrast in that. But it's nice, and really love that one.
Excellent. So what else you got?
Well, second, and this is no surprise for me, is from E's Memories of Salsetta, and that would be Ancient Land. It may have a different translation somewhere online, but Ancient Land's what I've always referred to it as. And it's another one that I had picked up, and I ended up getting the soundtrack before the game, as is the case with most of the soundtracks I listen to. And this one is fantastic. It's just an action-packed piece of music, and it's got some very, kind of rocking, rock guitar sounds. It's got some rock violin. If you've ever listened to any of the stuff that JDK, anything that they've ever done, that they've got some rocking violins and rocking guitar and just some great music. And it really picks up at about, I think it's somewhere around the 2-minute and 20-second mark. It just breaks into just an awesome violin solo, and it's just fantastic, and it just brings out just all kinds of tension and just makes you want to get up and move. So it's something you listen to whenever you're wanting to get some energy going.
Yeah, I never listen to Falcon music when I'm tired. Well, I do, but not when I want to become tired.
Right. So this one was good, and I actually did get to this part in game, and it took forever to get to, and when it finally started playing in there, I just ended up fighting around that area over and over and over just so I could continuously listen to that track over and over again. So there's a lot of great stuff on the Salsetta soundtrack. For some reason, I've heard Falcon fans say that they don't care for that soundtrack near as much as some of the others, but it's actually one of my favorite East soundtracks, so I'm just going to enjoy it and be okay with that. And I guess for my last pick is the one where I cheated, and that was with Final Fantasy XIV, A Realm Reborn. Tons of fantastic music in this game. And what really hit me was initially when it was announced, it was pretty much an Uematsu thing, but before it became A Realm Reborn. So, he did great with Answers. I love that one. That's one of my favorites with him.
Oh, yeah.
But things kind of changed, and I'm horrible at name pronunciation, so you can help me with...
Our new fellow is Masayoshi Soken.
Okay. Just so that, me and my southern accent didn't butcher that name. I know Soken he's come in and done a fantastic job with the Realm Reborn soundtrack with the new pieces that he's added to this. So the ones that I selected from this, and the reason I kind of cheated is the first one doesn't really have an official title yet. It's just the dawn, the piece that plays at dawn in Thanalan whenever you're out on the, in the field. And it's just a little 30-second piece, and it's just so calming. And I remembered when I was playing it during the beta that I had just walked out of Ul'dah, and morning hit, and this piece just played, and it was so short. And I was like, is this just, what happened? Is it just because the beta, they don't have all the music in yet? And it just crushed me when I found out that there was not more to it than this. There was just 30 seconds, because it was such a beautiful little piano piece. And while that's one of my favorites from this soundtrack, or from that game, the piece that I actually kind of wanted to go with and I guess it's not really even the new stuff, but wanted to go with this one, was Fallen Angel, and that's the Garuda boss battle theme.
Michael will be a very big fan of you for selecting this.
Yeah,
Excellent.
it's not what I chose for my block, I was down between this and my actual pick. So I'm glad that we get to have both on here.
Excellent contrast.
And interestingly, by the time we post this too, we will have an interview with Masayoshi Soken about his work on 14, and we specifically asked him about this. So very
nice.
Apropos that you picked it.
Indeed. And this was one of the tracks that I had not listened to prior to getting to this scene. So when I actually got to Garuda in the game, I still remember it. It was like 2 a.m, and I'm not necessarily a night owl. I'm not up late generally, but for one night, we had started late, and some of my free company folks, we had gotten together to do Garuda, and all kinds of connection issues, and ended up finally getting to her at around 2 a.m. And it took a couple hours to do that. So it's pretty much 2 hours of listening to that piece or that song over and over and over again. And the fact that, not only did I not get sick of it, that it just kind of helped in the battle. It kind of makes you want to fight harder. It makes you want to win.
It really does.
Listening to that.
My one of my closest friends, we got him the game recently, and he's been playing, and we've been walking him through, and we got to Garuda, and he was so excited, and I just, the whole time, he's like, all right, what do I do? And I'm just kind of running in a circle, panning the camera around, look at how dramatic I am!
Oh, yes, and it really is just a fantastic song, and it was not at all what I expected. But then again, after going through and getting to the music that plays during Titan, it kind of caught me off guard too. I was like, whoa, this is different, It was like hearing Overworld for the first time. It worked.
Yeah, it was a good choice of them to keep it around in A Realm Reborn, because it's a strong piece of music. A lot of the 1.0 stuff is great, and I think they did a great job picking stuff that fits in well with what's in A Realm Reborn, even if it's totally different like this.
Yes, and this it worked so well. I really loved it, and that was the one if I had to narrow it down to, the one that stood out to me the most about A Realm Reborn.
Excellent. Before we talk any further, let's go ahead and take a listen to Labyrinth 3, Grotto of the Adamantine Beast, Ancient Land, Thanalan Dawn, and Fallen Angel. I am a huge Yuzo Koshiro fan in general, and I asked Don while we were out which album he prefers. Is it Etrian Odyssey 4 or is it New Etrian Odyssey? Because they came out in such close proximity, and just I don't know how Koshiro puts out that much great work, because I love all those soundtracks. My personal favorite is 3, in case anyone's wondering. And
I would concur there.
Right? It's awesome. Although 2 has awesome stuff too, but off topic, I'm getting. But I asked him that, and I've given you time to think, so keep thinking about that, because I'm going to ask you before we're done. But what I really love about that particular track is that, like we said before we listened to it, it's pretty well into the game. Like, if you're at Labyrinth 3, you've invested into Etrian Odyssey. Like,
Yes.
you've been grinding a bit, you've built up your characters, you know the jam at that point. So, and that game is just exhausting sometimes in a good way, because you can't really relax when you play that, unless I know they have the easier mode now, which is great if you want to just enjoy the dungeon crawling and map it. But for me, whenever I play those games, I'm like exhausted as I get through every floor of the dungeon. I'm like, oh gosh, here we go. So to have that sort of lonely piano is really, like you said, it's cathartic almost, but it's off-putting, because like there's that really deep bass that I like, and the piano by itself, it creates a mood of disquiet even while it sort of soothes you.
Right. The flute in the background too, just kind of going along, or whatever the wind instrument is, just hypnotizing.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the saxophone in that track.
It's very sexy.
Oh yeah.
You get to stay. You made a pun.
That is the key to Steven's heart.
Yeah, that or Back to the Future quotes. Don, you had time to think about it. Which one do you like better, 4 or New?
Now, if I have to give a decision, I have to say New, only because most of the soundtrack is based off of the original soundtrack, and it's just arranged.
True.
But I think the arrangements, like especially with the normal battle theme, are really more, I guess, energetic than, say, the normal battle theme or the first three labyrinths battle theme for Etrian Odyssey 4. While nice, it's a little less powerful, and I think some of the battle theme,
it's less punchy than I think those older FM ones are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. I really like them both, and it's hard for me to pick, but I think I do tend to skew a little closer to, or a little more towards the older Etrian Odysseys. Not because I don't think the new ones are awesome, because they are, but I really like the punchiness and like the dirty, bassy stuff of those older ones, because they're still using that FM sound. I'm a child of the Genesis. I love terrible sounding bass. Oh. That was excellent. And then next we listened to Ancient Land from Celceta. Yves Celceta. Sorry, Derek would yell at me if I mispronounced it again.
As long as you don't call it Wise.
I like to play the Wise games with Adol and Doggy.
Oh, God.
much Celceta.
Well, see, Derek always points out, he goes, "You've studied Japanese for 7 years. How do you not know how to pronounce that?" That's a good point. I should feel ashamed of myself. And I do. But I also really like that song.
Indeed. And it makes me cringe hearing people say that. But at least you enjoy the music. That's all that matters. Just that the violin solo at 220, just still. Anytime that hits, it just, it'll just rock. Sorry. I don't even really have words for it. Just, I enjoy hearing that one over and over.
Yeah, that was something I had to learn to do when we started doing Rhythm Encounter. I was like, I can't just be like, I was like, I have to verbalize. Use my words. I'm going to get yelled at for using the same phrasing in, but Falcom's rockin'. And Celceta is actually one of my favorite Ys soundtracks, too. Maybe because I'm not as exposed to the other ones. Like, I like Origin. But when I first heard Celceta, when it came out in Japanese, I was like, man, this is just awesome. Like, I really love the idea of using a violin with a rockin' song like that. So the melody is just great in that. And I always, in my brain, whenever I hear, especially Wise music, I always get like...
before I knew better, I used to, at least, I wasn't that bad, but I would try to pronounce it the best I could. Yeah. I would say yes.
Yes. But like those...
It's better than Wise.
I always sort of associate them with like the 80s for some reason. So whenever I hear it, I'm like, this is like exactly what would happen if they had this musical technology in the 80s. Well, actually, they had like the Red Book audio. So I always get such like this quintessential 80s vibe from Ys music, and this is definitely no exception.
Indeed. Yeah, and like I said, when I got to that part in game, it was so easy to get into it because you could get in such a rhythm with that music. It's just so intense. It just continues to build and build and build. And what really gets me about the just that end part is the hesitation that happens right before the solo hits, and oh yeah,
yeah.
and then it comes right back into that. So good.
In my notes, I wrote that thing with the melody, and that's what I was talking about. So my musical terminology is very specific. We've invented a few things here, like that thing and honker, but
it's kind of sad because not having any kind of verbalization skills, it seems like, after years of listening to music and 7 or 8 years of being involved in music and knowing all the terminology and not being able to say more about it than this. But yes, when it gets to the hesitation and then the syncopated rhythm after the rest is just fantastic. I don't know, it's great.
I was
Listen
about to be
to it.
impressed. Yes,
fantastic.
So the last 2 tracks, we'll sort of bundle them together since one of them is brief and amazing. We've made no bones about our love for Final Fantasy XIV. We gave it a zillion awards on the site because we all love it and we're all still playing it. And the music in particular, I think, is a very large part of that for me. And
Absolutely.
I'd privilege your comments on this because I've had an opportunity to talk about it forever.
Yes, the music on Final Fantasy XIV, and that was another one that our awards at RPGamer 2, we ended up, I hadn't even thought about this, but I just looked at the 3 that we gave awards to, and it was Salbato, A Realm Reborn, and Etrian Odyssey 4 in that order, which is
So
kind of
basically
ironic.
You ran the whole thing.
Yeah, I pretty much, I guess I just manipulated that one. And I think I mentioned all of the... Yep, I do. Okay. Because I wrote the whole piece on this and mentioned all those. I think I'll just read our awards because I think I verbalized it better there.
Yeah, by all means.
But no. Final Fantasy XIV really is just fantastic overall, and the music is a fantastic part of it. From Answers, which is easily my favorite thing that Susan Calloway's ever done, and I'm a huge fan of Distant Worlds. Her work on that, even though she wasn't the original lyricist for that one, her version of it is just awesome. And being able to hear her do that one live at a Distant World concert was great, and I wish I'd been able to catch Answers too. But it's great. Soken's music that he's done with this, from Titan's track to, Garuda's Fallen Angel, everything about it, it's something that you never want to turn down. You don't want to turn these down. You want to listen to them. You want to always be able to hear these, and it's fantastic. Everything about the music is just amazing.
With an MMORPG, I've played my fair share of them, and even my favorite ones. Like, prior to 14, my favorites were Dark Age of Camelot and Lord of the Rings Online. And Chance Thomas's music is great in Lord of the Rings Online, but the thing is, after, 100 hours, I don't care to hear the music anymore. And I never got into Final Fantasy XI enough, but I always wanted to because of how great the music in that was. Like, I really loved it, and I was like, there's no way 14s will be as good. And then it's just, I'm playing it, and I'm like, you're right, I never want to turn the music off. Like, there are mundane things that you do a lot in an MMO, even the best MMOs. 14 doesn't necessarily innovate, but it does really well. And so when you're doing something that's repetitive, because sometimes those kind of tasks come in an MMO, they're elevated to something a little more because of how good the music is, at least for me, because I'm like, I fought Garuda 50 times, but I still every time I get in there, I'm like, all right, pan the camera around with the whirlwind, and look at how cool Talus looks with that music.
Yes.
So...
And see, I did play 11, and that was, the only other MMO I'd played at the time. Played a little while after that, but not much. But it just, for people who even don't like MMOs, it's hard for people that haven't played these to really understand that these games have fantastic music. 14, 11, both of them. You don't always associate a lot of that stuff because people that don't play them don't necessarily think of those as real games for whatever reason. That's, just kind of a stigma that they have.
Yeah, like a lot of people will say, I don't play the MMO Final Fantasies because they're no good. And don't get me wrong, 11 had a kind of a barrier to entry.
Yes, it
but
did.
I think it rewarded players too. Like, I never had the chance to, and 14 is very similar. Like, I've been saying for a while that 14 is one of my favorite Final Fantasies in a while. Not
same here.
One of my favorite Final Fantasies that's online. It's like, no, I will have the same memories of playing 14 now as an adult that I do of, like, thinking back to, like, 9, because the amount of time I spent with it is just so much, and I have had so many good experiences that remind me of the kind I had when I played older Final Fantasies.
And it started for me because I played just a little of the beta of the original of 14, and I'm not trying to get too much into that and trying to bring it back to music. In the intro, when they first showed off the intro cinematic for A Realm Reborn, and it has antlers playing in the background, and just the hauntingness of that whole thing. That whole cinematic just screamed Final Fantasy, and the rest of the game just matched it. And I'll be one to say that song is just so intense. It's one that can kind of tear up on just because of the intensity of that music.
Oh yeah, definitely. And
not ashamed to say it.
You shouldn't be.
I agree with the sentiments about Fallen Angel. It's one of my favorite tunes from the original soundtrack, and I'm glad they kind of carried it over, because it's like that intro is what really gets me.
Oh yeah,
before it really starts,
chanting,
like the chanting and the piano and the kind of jazzy in the background. It's crazy, but I don't know. When I first got to that battle, like to see how it kind of worked, because I had no idea what Garuda looked like aside from like that little screen picture that shows up when you accept the quest.
Oh yeah.
I was like, holy crap, what's going on? And then like the background and the world, it's absolutely crazy.
Yeah,
but I think it fits very well.
Yeah, like that's one of those moments where you're like, I'm playing Final Fantasy. Like this is Final Fantasy as like you imagine it in your days of yore. Like you're
against Barbaricia.
Yeah, yes.
I imagine that's how like the kind of battlefield that she would kind of employ if you could get that kind of.
Oh yes, that's a good example to go back to.
Kind of get that kind of dynamic in the Tower of Zot.
Oh yes,
that would be great.
And I like the intro to that song so much. I think I just told you guys, well, in game the other day, but when you do a boss battle like 30 times, you're going to just skip the cutscenes. But Garuda is the one I won't skip because I like the build up and the intro to that song so much.
Yeah, it's like it is keyed up really well, and it's good. I also with the answers, I don't know if any of you have been to Binding Coil. I know Mike and I have. And we don't want to talk too much about it, but if you like answers, you should probably go to Binding Coil at least once. I'm not going to say any more than that. I'm just saying it would behoove you. Or at least listen to the music.
That I've done.
But anyways, awesome selections. And again, thank you for bringing them with us and for joining us. We'll, like I said, we're going to get you back. But now, the spin the bottle of play music. Wow, that's a terrible metaphor. I'm sorry. But it's... Don, I'm sorry. I tried to give you some...
I hope it lands on me. I hope it lands on me.
I hope it lands on me. I want a kiss of music. But I tried to give you an epic introduction, Don, and I turned it into something silly. So you picked our next tracks. So what do we got? What did you love from last year?
Well, I could have chosen lots of things.
Yeah.
And my first track is also from Etrian Odyssey, but it's from the new Etrian Odyssey, or Etrian Odyssey Untold as it's known in the West. But I seriously contemplated picking something from Seventh Dragon 2020-2, because Koshiro also composed that last year. I don't know how he does it, as you had mentioned, but I decided to choose Etrian Odyssey only because this version has FM synth for the new music as well, which was something that was, I wouldn't say sorely lacking, but to some fans of the series, sorely lacking in Etrian Odyssey 4. And, I mean, I'm not going to explain why I chose this track quite yet, but I hope that people who are fans of the original soundtrack at least notice why I chose this particular battle theme, which is played in the new area in the story mode of the game. And then after that, I decided I wanted to choose something from Drakengard 3, since that was kind of just released at the tail end of 2013 in Japan. And although I could have opted for either type of battle kind of music, the crazy rocktronic versions or the orchestral battle themes on the first disc, I decided I just would choose something a little soft and mellow, the tune that closes off the first disc. And I'll have a little story about that too after the break. And then for track 7, I know we're getting the game in March, but the game came out in July of last year in Japan. And while not everybody likes Tenpei Sato's music as much as I may,
that's okay.
I think this tune is really unique. It's one of the vocal themes from that game. It's sung by Emmy Evans, who most people know from Nier. And it's a little different than most of his vocal tunes, and because I think it fuses his kind of charm in the vocal theme department with like Emmy Evans' duo group that she's part of, Freescape. So it kind of has this weird kind of trip hop sort of sound to it, but with violin and a whole bunch of other things. And I think it's just a really catchy tune. And then
That's sorry. Then that's from the Witch and the Hundred Knights. Is that?
Yeah, it's from Witch and the Hundred Knights. Sorry.
Blank,
and then
but-
lastly, since it came out also at the tail end of Japan and we just got it in the U.S., I figured it would be fitting to end with the new theme from Bravely Default for the sequel. And it's a boss theme that's used against enemies you get in Street Pass or from the update data.
Ah, okay, gotcha. That's why I didn't recognize it, because it's from the second version of the game.
And it's kind of a bipolar sort of tune, but I'm sure there's a reason for that, because in my history of knowing Revo's work through, or Revo, I think that's how he pronounces it. I'm not quite sure, but Revo just sounds more natural to me.
Revolution.
Yes, it's a revolution.
Oh my god, I feel bad about that.
It sounds like two tracks kind of like merged into one. So I'm going to say it now. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I am almost willing to bet that when the second game comes out, each of those tracks will be their own separate thing. But that's just a guess. They're just going to kind of be like their little teasers that he's put together for a battle theme. But that's just it's a pretty interesting tune with a lot of different styles, and it really is one of my favorite tunes in all of Bravely Default.
Excellent. Well, all right then, let's go ahead and take a listen before we chitter-chatter any further. We got coming up Battlefield Furnace of War, the FM version, piano track For the Sake of Ethics, Magiaju from Witch and the Hundred Knights, and The Name of Distorted Thought is the Devil from Bravely Default for the sequel. In my notes for Etrian Odyssey, I'm actually glad you picked this one, Don, because it's a nice contrast from the orchestral one that Mac picked. And that's, my notes say FM, 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 bass, bass, bass in all caps. I have flashes of my childhood. Like, I flash back to, like, moments, like, specific moments as a kid listening to this song. And then I'm like, no, that's impossible. This came out last year. But Koshiro, his FM stuff just does such an amazing job capturing that Genesis sound, like that bass that just forever. It's why to this day I'm sure I love bass so much, because the Genesis, if it could do anything, it could do bass. It's like you said, it's a remix of the battle theme from the first Etrian Odyssey, but it has the difference between the orchestral stuff and the FM stuff is that it feels like the FM stuff is like punching you with how like in your face it is, and that's just the melody is great, but just that Genesis bass.
Where does that play in the game? Do you know what? That
plays initially, I think it plays in all of, I can't guarantee this because I haven't gotten that far in the game yet because I have been so busy, but it plays in the new dungeon that you can only access when you actually play story mode and not the classic version where you get to make your own characters, but it plays in that new dungeon, and yeah, I don't know how big that dungeon is. I know it's multiple floors and you go there after each time you clear a stratum.
Gotcha.
But yeah, there's also a couple versions of the labyrinth theme for that game as well. So, but I think there's only that one battle theme and then some boss themes for that section. And I don't know if it's necessarily a final boss since I haven't gotten that far yet. But I guess the final boss of that section, because I don't think it's the final boss of the game. But who knows?
Well, whatever it is, it's totally rad. Like the battle themes in all those games. Like I can't remember if I said it before we recorded, but just. That was what initially hooked me on it when I beat Etrian Odyssey 3. Like, I'm just like, oh my gosh, like these boss themes. And then like the faux battle theme it might have been the Stratum boss theme from 2. It's like that boom, 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 boom. Like,
yeah, that's the boss theme.
Oh, it's so dramatic. Love it.
When you said faux battle theme, I honestly interpreted it as FAUX. I'm like, what?
Yeah, it's not a real battle theme.
It was not a real battle theme. It was a battle theme before it was cool. It's called faux retro. Oh boy.
And I think we need to get you to do like all of the music instead of us actually listening to it. You can just rock it like you did just then.
I'll try. I see when I first started doing this, I was really shy to do that because I was like, people are going to think I'm an idiot. And then like around episode 3, I was like, oh my god, people think I'm an idiot anyway. I could just get away with it. So now I'm like, I slowly have become less shy at trying to mimic sounds because I can't be like, oh, that part when the syncopated bass beat comes up and the backbeat's like, bah, 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 bah. I'm like, nah, I'm just going to try to recreate the sound myself.
You do well.
Thank you. And you're a listener too, so I take your commentary with the highest of seriousness.
I do. I enjoy it, and I really enjoyed that track too because that one was something that I hadn't heard anything really outside of the few things that I've heard in game from what I've played of Untold, and that one really rocks. Yeah, I'm gonna have to pick that soundtrack up because
See, we're doing our duty here. I always love it when somebody's like, "Oh, I gotta get that music." I'm like, "Yeah, you do."
That's pretty much every time that one of these podcasts hits because there's usually something. Except the last one, I think you played like all of my favorites on, but
you're welcome.
Kind of hard to do that.
So, Don, talk a little bit about piano track for the sake of ethics. So, Dragon Dragoon 3 has a really interesting soundtrack. Let me just preface it with what I think, and then I'd like you to talk about it because you're incredibly knowledgeable about this. But it's what I found interesting going into it is that I had sort of prepared myself for knowing it wasn't going to be like Nier, which I think helped me enjoy it more because I like Nier's soundtrack a lot, but I don't think I'm quite at the level that most people are. Like, where I really enjoy it. I think maybe if I beat the game, I'd feel differently. But the Dragon Dragoon 3 soundtrack is just so crazy. Like, one minute it's this orchestral stuff, then it's like there's like dubstep in a song, and then there's just there's This Silence Is Mine, which is the best thing ever, and there's just such insane variety to it, yet it all sort of fits together. That track just when I think of the soundtrack, I think of something that isn't that. So when I hear that, I'm like, oh my gosh, I almost forgot that's on there. Not because it's not wonderful, because it is, but because there's just such an eclectic mix that like the last thing you heard is the thing you remember most, at least for me.
I chose that track mainly because it wasn't necessarily off-putting for some people. I mean, I love that style of music anyway, the heavy kind of electronic music.
Yeah.
And I also like the orchestral battle theme or the battlefield stage themes. and I didn't want to choose something that was very reminiscent of Nier either, like some of the tracks. So I chose that track mainly because I think it's a really nice piece, but also what impressed me more is that piece is actually, I don't know the exact percentage, but it's mostly improvised.
Really?
Yes, and the composer is also the pianist on it.
And that's Keigo Hoashi from, I wrote Monaka.
Monaka, yes.
It could be from Monaco.
It's a good soundtrack. Good place, too, I hear, but I've never been there.
But yeah, I mean, it's just a nice, peaceful kind of track, and I think it closes off the first disc quite nicely. Although it doesn't... Well, the first track on the disc 2 is Black Song, the main theme, but neither track really prepares you for what to expect for the majority of disc 2.
Yeah, disc 2 is very, is quite a change, and I've had a couple people say that. They go, oh, I got to disc 2, and then, oh, what happened? It's so different.
Yeah, it reminds me of... when the sampler CD for the Tokyo Game Show came out, and this track was on there, and I asked if whatever, I don't know which theme, I think it was the first battle theme, like Ray of the Brave, the orchestral one, if it was composed by the same person who composed the piano track that we just listened to, and he said, yeah, it looks like they went with one of the least crazy tunes on the soundtrack. And I was like, oh my god, what does that mean?
Like, what does that mean?
Is it going to be like Drakengard 1, where it's like this crazy, discordant orchestral like choppiness, or is it going to be like the second game where it's a little more, I guess, composed? And not that like, I mean, the first music was composed too, but I mean by composed, I mean like it was more tangible. It wasn't very experimental. That's what I mean.
I have a quick question on this then, just to get your thoughts on the Drakengard 3 soundtrack. I haven't listened to the first two, but I'm a huge fan of Nier, and even got my wife into Nier, and she doesn't normally like. She calls my game music that stuff that I listen to. But she actually requested the Nier piano tracks soundtrack. So how close to Drakengard 1 and 2 is 3? Because it feels so different from Nier to me.
I would say it is very far from Drakengard 1, without question. Mm-hmm. Some tunes on Drakengard 2 are like the orchestral kind of themes. But I still think that Drakengard 3 is its own unique kind of beast.
Gotcha. It definitely sounds like it. It took me a little while to come around to it, but now I'm starting to really get into it.
And then the next track we listened to is from The Witch and the Hundred Knights. And see, it's interesting because Tenpei Sato is not someone I would list when I say favorite composers. But then I always hear stuff that I really like, and then I'm like, gosh, I need to listen to this more. And I think the biggest reason is just that I don't play many of those games, even though I think The Witch and the Hundred Knights is a roguelike, I believe, and I really want to try it out, actually. But I really like that song. First of all, you can never go wrong with Amy Evans. She's just such a pretty voice, and just it fits in with the song had this sort of like playfulness to it, like a really bouncy rhythm and like a smooth bass, and just it really felt like it. Like I feel like I get a good sense of the atmosphere in that game by listening to that track, having not played it. But it's just, I don't want to say it's whimsical because that's my evil word, but I don't know.
Say it.
It's not though. I don't think it's hard for me to. It reminds me of like the Flanoir song from Tales of Symphonia for some reason, but it gives me that same kind of like, yeah, I'm happy to be here kind of vibe.
Kind of whimsical, maybe.
Michael,
it's not truly a roguelike. I'll say that.
Oh, okay.
Action RPG. Strange though.
It's been a long time coming. I remember when it was supposed to come out in 2012.
Yeah, I thought it came out.
And then it was delayed for improvements. Well, and then at first I thought it was going to be like vaporware.
It looked a lot more interesting to start with than it does now, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't usually play too many NIS RPGs either, but I don't know. I've always liked most of his music. And I think that his soundtracks that aren't part of an established series are my favorites, like Phantom Brave or...
Oh, it's a good one.
What is the U.S. name? I only know by the Japanese name. Soul Cradle?
Soul Eater?
Yeah, Soul Eaters. Soul Eaters, and then this. Because this guy has this very whimsical, like it's a quirky kind of style. So he gets, I guess, maybe more freedom to be more experimental with his music in that series. Because the whole premise of that game is to be ridiculous. It is. You can get to level 9999? Sure.
Yeah, why not? Go for it.
Do billions of points of damage? Sure, why not? So, in that sense it fits, but it's not always necessarily as successful. But I like Disgaea 4 soundtrack probably the most.
Soul Nomad.
Soul Nomad.
That's what it was, yeah.
World Eater, something like that.
Yeah, Soul Nomad, the World Eater.
And then, so the last track, I wrote like a million notes on it because I'm sort of thanks to Don who got me into Revo, as I'm going to call him now because it sounds like Revolution. I was all excited for the Bravely Default soundtrack before it even came out because Don kept being like, listen to this sample. And then when it came out, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so good. And then, over a year later, I still didn't have the game. So
when Bravely Default was completely first announced, nobody knew who the composer was at all.
Except you.
No.
Really?
Even no, because the very first theme that was released was the world map theme.
Oh, goodness. That's a wonderful song.
I could not figure it out for the life of me. And I contemplated. I'm thinking it's got to be somebody that we know who composes RPG music. And I was like, it's really brassy. Is it Iwadare? Possibly. And then later on, we heard the battle theme. And I'm like, oh, this is really brassy now. It's got to be him. But then I was like, but the bass kind of sounds like Sakuraba, like the rhythm. But I'm like, it's not keyboardy enough. So I was like, what the hell's going on? And then right before it was announced, there were rumors going around that it was this person named Riva from Sound Horizon, which I had known for like 6 years prior. I kind of started freaking out.
Yeah, you're a big fan of them.
And then once I listened to the battle theme again after knowing it, I'm like, I'm an idiot. I should have picked this up. It was so obvious.
He has such a distinctive sound that when I reviewed it, I talked about it. I go, it's like he distilled all of the things that I love about some of the classic JRPG music, like from all the composers, because I feel like he touches on the styles of a lot of other composers throughout it as sort of like a tribute to those that came before him easily. Yeah. Because there are parts where the violin really sounds like Shimomura. Or, you'll get parts that see like the brass and it sounds like Iwadare, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's such a great tribute.
And the boss theme, that when you're not fighting actual people, but like monsters boss theme.
Yeah.
That is Sakuraba to a T.
It is, and that's what I liked about it. But what's cool is that as you get to the second disc of the soundtrack and further into the game, he starts to make it his own. Like, not that he didn't, but it becomes a tribute to Sound Horizon style of music. And that's why the final boss suite of songs is so amazing. Because it's like he just rips out the guitars and he's like, it is go time.
The final boss suite is amazing. And the actual last track of the final boss theme is one of my favorites in decades.
I would talk more about it, but the game just came out, and I don't want to spoil the musical surprise for anybody.
No, of course not.
But it does one of my favorite things with game music, so I'll leave it at that. But in this track in particular, the reason I went around saying all that is because I feel like this is very strongly in the Revo doing his thing category and not tributing to somebody else. Like, you have those really great vocals and the guitar and the piano breakdown, and I listened to it and I'm reminded of the stage presence Sound Horizon has when they put on those shows that you showed me. And I think we've said it on the show before, but if you haven't seen their performances of some of their shows, it's like insane rock stage opera madness, and it's awesome. And what this track does that I think Bravely Default does well in general is that it revisits so many of the main themes, even if it's just for a second or two. So it's like, I'm listening, I haven't heard this track, but I've heard a lot of the tracks that inform it. So I'm getting into it because I'm like, oh, that's the battle theme. Like, oh, this is so dramatic. And that's the kind of music that really pulls you in when you're fighting a boss, when you're reminded of things musically that you know. It's like the composer's going, hey, we're in on this together, right? And it's just, I don't have enough good things to say about that track. I had never heard it, and it fits well, and it's just wonderful.
Yeah, I like the dynamism.
Absolutely.
Of his music, especially some of his recent Sound Horizon stuff that came out last year too. He has a track. This is kind of wandering off topic, but it goes through 5 or 6 different styles in 10 minutes, and I'm like, okay, this has purpose. Everything he does has purpose, but it still feels put together.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I liked about it too, is that there's so much going on in that. How long is it? 6 minutes? It almost feels like you're listening to a different song, but like Don said, it's like you can tell it's the same song, but it just goes so many different places. It's very interesting.
Yeah, and that's a strength of the whole soundtrack, is that a lot of the tracks are lengthy but not repetitive. It's a very, I would say it's not a loopable soundtrack because the tracks are very distinctive.
Yeah, there's a couple on that soundtrack that are a little repetitive that I have to turn off if I've not just in the mood for it. But I think I know what you're talking about now. I haven't really paid attention.
I'm kind of intrigued to know one of those examples, just out of curiosity.
See, that's my problem, is I listen to them constantly, so I don't know titles, and I don't have those right off the top of my head. I'd actually have to dig through the soundtrack and listen, and I'll get you a name after this.
Oh, man, I was hoping to get some dissent in the ranks. I wanted Don to throw down the gloves and be like, oh, you want to talk Kishimoto?
No.
Sorry, I forgot. I'm a host, not a fight runner guy.
They're called referee.
Thank you.
Yes.
There's my words again.
Thing.
But sorry, you were saying.
No, I think I know exactly what you're talking about. And if it's what I think it is, with you were mentioning the battle or the final boss theme or something along those lines, where it does one of your favorite things in music. I think I know exactly what you're talking about, despite the fact I don't know what order things are in. I tend to just put them on shuffle and not pay attention to order. But I think I've got a good idea what you're talking about there, and that's one of the strengths I've found. And it was a good thing with this piece that you played too, is that it does keep coming back around. It brings back the familiar, but twists in something new. It's really good.
Yeah, it rewards that's the thing, is you get wrapped up in it, because it's like when you're playing like I imagine how people who are big fans of Ys feel when they hear, like Fina's theme rearranged or something. Like, I don't know if that's actually her name, but like, when you're playing a Final Fantasy and that inevitable Chocobo theme comes up, it's like it's tapping into the history of that series when you hear it, and it's kind of like you're like, yeah, I feel like I'm a part of this. And
yeah.
Bravely Default is just one game and one expansion, basically, but that the music is so capable of coming back around and saying, hey, you've been playing this game for a while, now we're coming back around. You're like, yeah, it's tapping into the experience you already have playing the game and just draws you in, much like Binding Coil of Bahamut.
Evil Flight or Evil Fight, whichever one that is.
That's one of the final boss tracks.
Okay. One of those is the repetitive one I'm referring to.
I can see that.
Yeah, I can actually see that. I'll buy that. I will allow your dissent.
But Silence of the Forest is awesome. That would have been my pick had I shared one from the Bravely Default soundtrack.
Well, Silence of the Forest is beautiful.
It is. This is horrible, but I think we played it on the show. And if we played a Bravely Default song, and it might have been Silence of the Forest, or I might be saving it for a Forest Themes episode. We're going to call it Foliage, Ocean, and Rhythm Encounter. But, yeah,
You're not kidding, are you?
No. You can draw the graphic now if you want.
Okay.
All right. We made it around. Gentlemen, thank you both so much for coming to serenade us with picks that are not just Chrono Cross, because I would have tried, and I might still. It's not too late. But yes, Don, thank you. As always, I'm always happy to get you on here, because last time when you came too, you brought a Tenpei Sato track. I think you brought two of them. And we have
I know I brought one from Mugen Souls, but I don't remember. And I contemplated choosing some from Mugen Souls Z, but I decided...
That's a good album. I like that. And you know what it is we like to... Obviously, we pick our favorite tracks on here, and we try occasionally to pick things that are like, all right, this isn't necessarily something I would pick if I had to pick my top 10, but for the sake of variety and because this is a good song, I want it on there. But sometimes it's hard, like you fall into a rut. Like we had some, for the time travel episode, we had a few people that said, oh man, you guys didn't veer out of a lot of stuff, and I'll agree with that because I picked all my favorite stuff because I just felt so strongly about that topic. But it's always great, especially when, like, both of you came on, and it's great to get different opinions, because then we get other composers we don't have, and even though I'm not the biggest Tenpei Sato fan, I still like Tenpei Sato, and whenever we get an opportunity to play him, because the thing is, I can't pick a Tenpei Sato track because I don't listen to enough of the music to be like, oh, this is a great Tenpei Sato track. So I thank you for your reasoned and varied contribution, Don. And
thank you. I tried to add variety, but if anyone who hasn't heard that soundtrack wants another great tune from Witch and Hundred Nights, just on YouTube, I think you can just type in Moon Wars and then Witch and Hundred Nights, and then you should get another amazing tune.
I will do that. And then Mac, again, thank you. You picked two Final Fantasy XIV tracks, so you were in my good graces to begin with. And I just noticed, I don't think you've updated in a while, but your page on RPGamer says that one of the most wanted sequels you want is Lost Odyssey 2. So hello, new best friend.
Yes, I haven't touched that in a while, but that's still true. That would be something I would love to see again.
I ask them on Twitter like once a year. I'm like, hey, can you guys make Lost Odyssey 2? Maybe someday.
Steven, I'm sitting right here. You replaced me on air.
Your best
friend. There's the
yes, it's now me.
Oh, sorry, I forgot about old best friend.
Yeah.
I'll be like that.
You're old now. Oh my God, the insults just keep coming.
I'm leaving.
Well, I love everybody.
I hope to be back in time for the next episode. Oh, see?
Well,
Pun and Back to the Future and music all in one.
Oh, I can't say what I want to say. It's an Archer quote, but I can't say it because it's not appropriate. It's not fit for work. But it would work. But yeah,
yes,
anyways.
Takeharu Ishimoto. If you have any more Ishimoto ever, there's been a severe lack of him on this podcast.
I will
that
make
needs
a note
to be
of that.
remedied.
We can do that, and I will
Whole
happily
episode.
do that. I got to get the Last Dungeon song from Crisis Core. It's an awesome song.
Oh, Crisis Core, everything.
Something water. Yes. But anyways, Don, Mac, Michael, thanks all for coming again. So we're going to move on to our next section now, in which we will hit some more RPG fan editors picks, and then keep listening because we're not sure if we're going to split the episode in half, but we probably are because it's going to be mega size for our awesome feature that you're already part of because you're in the future listening to this. We're going to have reader picks coming up. Reader picks. You read our podcast coming up soon. So again, guys, thank you again for dropping by and keep listening, folks.
nobody's eyes till the stereo route. Stop the guerrilla war, better keep it back. Bro, change your rate, smart and greater cow. You know the stake is hot, top down the fear. Those who sympathize to die.